The common area of New Terra Station buzzed with the usual afternoon activity. Humans moved between the shops and cafes, while various alien species conducted their business. The station served as a trading post on the frontier, where dozens of different civilizations crossed paths. Emma Morrison sat on a bench near the fountain, swinging her legs and watching the crowd. She loved seeing all the different aliens who visited the station. Her father always told her to be respectful and curious, and she took both instructions seriously. That was when she noticed the alien woman struggling near the entrance to the medical center. She had 4 arms and a smooth, dark carapace that shimmered under the station lights. Her species was called Xerathi, Emma remembered from school. But what caught her attention was the way the woman limped, one of her legs clearly not working right. Emma hopped off the bench and walked closer. The alien woman had stopped, leaning against a wall. Her prosthetic leg sparked slightly at the joint, and she made a clicking sound that Emma guessed was frustration. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, looking up at the tall alien. The woman looked down, her large eyes focusing on the small human child. "I am managing, young one. My prosthetic has malfunctioned. I am waiting for the medical center to tell me when a replacement will arrive." "Is it broken?" Emma stepped closer, examining the mechanical leg with interest. "Yes. The power coupling failed 3 days ago. It grows worse each day." The alien woman, whose name was Vela, sighed. "They tell me it will take 4 months for a new one to arrive from my homeworld. The technology is specialized." Emma frowned. 4 months seemed like a very long time to walk around with a broken leg. "My dad can fix that." Vela's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "I appreciate your confidence, child, but this is Xerathi technology. It requires specific tools and knowledge. Your station's medical team has already informed me they cannot repair it." "My dad fixes lots of stuff," Emma insisted. "He works in the maintenance bay. He fixed the water recycler last week, and before that, he helped repair a Calvari ship engine. He says humans are good at making things work." Vela looked skeptical. She had heard about human engineers. The galactic community generally regarded them as clever but crude, using primitive solutions to complex problems. Her prosthetic represented the finest Xerathi engineering, with quantum-locked joints and neural interfacing that responded to her thoughts. No human could possibly understand such technology. But the child looked so earnest, and Vela was desperate. 4 months of struggling with a malfunctioning limb stretched before her like a prison sentence. What harm could it do to let a human examine it? "Very well," Vela said. "If your father is willing to look at it, I would be grateful. Though I suspect he will confirm what the medical team already told me." Emma's face lit up. "He gets off work in an hour. Can you come to our quarters? It's in Section 7. Vela agreed, and Emma carefully wrote down the address on a datapad. The little girl made her promise to come, then ran off, presumably to tell her father about his new project. An hour later, Vela made her way through the station corridors to the Morrison quarters. She had to stop twice to rest, her damaged prosthetic grinding and jerking with each step. By the time she reached the door, she was exhausted. Emma opened the door immediately, as if she had been waiting right there. "Dad." "She's here." Jake Morrison appeared from the back room, wiping his hands on a rag. He was a man in his late 30s, with tired eyes and grease under his fingernails. He wore a maintenance jumpsuit with various tools hanging from the belt. "Hello," he said, extending his hand for a human greeting. "I'm Jake. Emma tells me you've got a prosthetic giving you trouble." Vela shook his hand awkwardly with one of her 4 arms. "Yes. I am Vela. Your daughter is very insistent that you can help, though I have doubts." Jake smiled. "Fair enough. Mind if I take a look?" They moved to the living area, where Jake had cleared a workspace on the table. Vela sat down and extended her damaged leg. Jake knelt beside it, pulling out a small light and examining the joints. "Emma, grab my scanner from the toolbox," he said without looking up. The little girl scurried away and returned with a handheld device. Jake ran it over the prosthetic, studying the readout with a frown. "The medical team said it was beyond repair," Vela said. "The quantum coupling is damaged, and the neural interface has degraded. Without Xerathi fabrication equipment, the components cannot be replaced." Jake nodded slowly, still examining the leg. They're right that I can't replicate these exact components. But I might be able to work around them. The fundamental engineering is solid. It's just these specific parts that failed. Work around them. Vela's tone was sharp. This is precision technology. You cannot simply substitute inferior components. Maybe not inferior, Jake said mildly. Just different. Give me a couple of days to study this. I'll need to keep the leg, if you're comfortable with that. I've got a spare mobility chair you can use. Vela hesitated. The idea of letting a human tinker with her prosthetic felt wrong. But Emma looked at her with such hope, and Jake seemed confident without being arrogant. 2 days, Vela agreed. But if you damage it further, I will need compensation. Jake grinned. Deal. Emma, help me get the mobility chair set up for our guest. As Vela left their quarters an hour later, floating in the mobility chair, she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. But somewhere in her thorax, a small spark of hope flickered. Perhaps the human could surprise her. Jake's workshop occupied a corner of the maintenance bay, a cramped space filled with equipment from a dozen different worlds. Shelves lined the walls, packed with spare parts, tools, and mysterious components he had salvaged over the years. A large workbench dominated the center, currently holding Vela's prosthetic leg under a bright examination light. He had been studying it for 6 hours now, and his respect for Sci-Fi engineering grew with each discovery. The device was a masterpiece. Each joint contained micro-actuators that responded to neural impulses faster than thought. The power distribution system used quantum entanglement to balance load across the entire structure. Even the outer casing served multiple functions, acting as both protection and a sensory array. It was also completely dead in 3 critical areas. Jake leaned back in his chair and rubbed his eyes. Emma sat in the corner doing her homework, occasionally glancing up to watch him work. She had insisted on coming to the workshop after school, convinced she needed to supervise. "Is it really broken, Dad?" she asked during one of these glances. "Oh, it's broken all right," Jake confirmed. "The power coupling fried when she plugged it into our station's charging system. Our power grid runs on a different frequency than Sci-Fi systems. It created a cascade failure that damaged the neural interface and locked up 2 of the quantum joints." "But you can fix it." Jake smiled at his daughter's confidence. "I can try. The question is whether my fix will work as well as the original." The door to the workshop opened, and Vela floated in using the mobility chair. She had come by twice already that day, unable to stay away despite her nervousness. "Any progress?" she asked. "Some," Jake said. "I think I understand the problem. Your prosthetic is designed to work with Sci-Fi power systems and Sci-Fi neural patterns. Our station's infrastructure is different enough that it caused a compatibility failure." Vela's mandibles drooped. "So it cannot be repaired here." "As I suspected." "I didn't say that." Jake stood and gestured to the prosthetic. "I can't fix it the Sci-Fi way because I don't have the right equipment. But I might be able to fix it the human way." "Which is?" "By replacing the damaged components with human-made alternatives that can handle our power systems and interface with your neural patterns." Vela's entire body went rigid. "You want to put human components into Sci-Fi technology? That is impossible. The systems are not compatible." "They aren't compatible now," Jake agreed. "But I can make them compatible. I'll need to fabricate some adapters and rewrite some of the control algorithms, but the basic principle is sound." "You will ruin it," Vela said flatly. "Human technology is too primitive to interface with quantum systems." "No offense intended." "None taken," Jake said easily. "And you might be right. But what's the alternative? 4 months on a mobility chair, or let me try?" Vela was silent for a long moment. She looked at the prosthetic, then at Jake, then at Emma, who watched her with hopeful eyes. "If you damage it beyond repair, I will be stranded here for even longer while a new one is fabricated," Vela said slowly. "True," Jake acknowledged. "But right now, it's already not working. At worst, I fail and you're in the same situation you're in now. At best, you walk out of here in a few days." Emma hopped down from her chair and walked over to Vela. "My dad's really good at fixing things. He fixed my toy robot when Mom said it was too broken. And he fixed the school's science lab when the teacher said they'd have to wait for a specialist. The mention of Emma's mother brought a flicker of pain to Jake's eyes, but he hid it quickly. His wife had died 2 years ago, leaving him to raise Emma alone. The work kept him busy, kept him from thinking too much. Vela studied the child, then the father. There was something about the way they looked at her, with hope and determination rather than pity. Most beings she encountered treated her prosthetic as a shameful necessity, a mark of incompleteness. These humans seemed to view it as just another problem to solve. "How long will it take?" Vela asked. 3 days, maybe 4, Jake said. "I need to fabricate some parts and do a lot of testing. I won't install anything until I'm sure it will work." "And if it does work, will it function as well as before?" Jake considered this carefully. "Honestly, I don't know. It might work differently. Human engineering focuses on durability and adaptability over precision. You might lose some of the fine control, but gain reliability." "I need to think about this," Vela said. "Take your time," Jake replied. "The leg will be here when you decide." Vela left the workshop, her mind churning. She returned to her temporary quarters and spent hours researching human engineering on the station's database. What she found surprised her. Humans had a reputation for breaking things and fixing them in unconventional ways. Where other species designed systems to be replaced when damaged, humans designed them to be repaired. Their technology was modular, adaptable, sometimes ugly, but remarkably resilient. She read about human mechanics who had kept ancient spacecraft running for decades past their designed lifespan. She learned about human doctors who improvised medical equipment in emergency situations. She discovered that humans had a saying about necessity being the mother of invention. The Xerathi way was different. They built things to perfection, to last without maintenance, to function flawlessly until they failed completely. When something broke, you replaced it. The idea of hybrid technology, mixing different design philosophies, was almost heretical. But Vela was stranded, desperate, and increasingly curious. The next morning, she returned to Jake's workshop. "I have decided," she announced. "You may attempt your repair. But I want to observe the entire process. I need to understand what you are doing to my prosthetic." Jake grinned. "Wouldn't have it any other way. Emma, looks like we've got an assistant." Emma cheered, and even Vela's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. Jake pulled out his tools and began explaining his plan. As Vela listened, she realized she was about to witness something rare in the galaxy. Human ingenuity in action. The workshop transformed into a hive of activity over the next 3 days. Jake worked with an intensity that surprised Vela, often forgetting to eat until Emma brought him sandwiches from their quarters. The little girl appointed herself as the official assistant, handing her father tools and asking endless questions about what he was doing. Vela watched everything, her 4 arms crossed in a mixture of skepticism and fascination. On the first day, Jake focused on the power coupling. The original Xerathi component lay on the workbench, its delicate crystalline structure fractured beyond repair. Jake held it up to the light, studying it from every angle. "This is beautiful work," he said honestly. "The way it distributes energy through quantum channels is incredibly efficient. But it's also fragile. One power surge and the whole thing shatters." "Xerathi power systems do not surge," Vela said defensively. "The component was designed for stable conditions." "Fair point," Jake acknowledged. "But you're not on a Xerathi station anymore. You're on a human frontier station where the power grid gets hit by solar flares, mining equipment surges, and the occasional accident. We need something more robust." He pulled out a small metal box from his parts bin. Inside were several cylindrical components that looked crude compared to the elegant Xerathi crystal. "These are human capacitor relays," Jake explained. "Not as efficient, but they can handle voltage fluctuations without breaking. I'm going to wire 3 of them in parallel with a buffer circuit." "That will create lag in the power delivery," Vela objected. "About 3 milliseconds," Jake agreed. "Will you notice that in normal walking?" Vela considered. "Probably not. But the inefficiency will drain the power cell faster." "True. So we'll install a bigger power cell." Jake pulled out another component. This one's from a mining exosuit. Twice the capacity, designed to run for days in harsh conditions. It will add weight. About 200 grams. Will that affect your balance? Vela paused. She had not expected him to ask her opinion. Xerathi prosthetists typically made all decisions themselves, presenting the patient with a finished product. I can adjust to 200 grams, she said slowly. Jake smiled and began assembling the new power system. His hands moved with practiced confidence, soldering connections and testing each joint. Emma sat beside him, watching carefully. Why are you using wire instead of printed circuits? Vela asked. Because wire can be repaired in the field, Jake said. Printed circuits are great until they break, then you need specialized equipment to fix them. Wire. Anyone with a soldering iron can patch it. This philosophy permeated every aspect of Jake's work. Where Xerathi engineering prized elegance and integration, human engineering valued modularity and repairability. Each component Jake installed could be swapped out independently if it failed. On the second day, Linda Chen arrived at the workshop. She was a programmer who worked in the station's computer systems, a thin woman with sharp eyes and quick fingers. Emma said you needed help with neural interfacing? Linda asked. Jake nodded gratefully. The original Xerathi interface uses quantum entanglement to read neural signals. I don't have the equipment to repair that, so I need a workaround. Linda examined the damaged interface chip, running diagnostics on her portable terminal. This is impressive. Response time under a microsecond. But you're right, we can't fix this. Can we replace it? Jake asked. Maybe. What if we use a standard neural mesh like the ones in prosthetics for humans, but overclock it and run 3 in parallel? Combined processing might get close to the original response time. Vela listened to them discuss technical details, throwing ideas back and forth. On her homeworld, such work would be done by a single specialist following established protocols. These humans were improvising, building solutions from whatever they had available. Will it feel the same? Vela interrupted. Linda looked up. Honestly, probably not. The signal processing will be slightly different. But your brain is adaptable. After a few days of calibration, it should feel natural. How many days? Hard to say. Human patients usually need 3 to 5 days. But you're Xerathi, so your neural structure is different. Could be faster or slower. Vela felt a flutter of anxiety. The idea of relearning how to use her own leg disturbed her. Emma must have noticed her distress. The little girl walked over and patted one of Vela's lower arms with her small hand. It's okay to be scared, Emma said simply. When I broke my arm last year, I was scared too. But it got better. Vela looked down at the child. In Xerathi culture, admitting fear was shameful. But Emma's words carried no judgment, only understanding. Thank you, young one, Vela said softly. On the third day, Marcus Webb joined them. He was a material scientist, a large man with gentle hands and an encyclopedic knowledge of lubricants and compounds. Jake tells me you need something that can handle both organic interfacing and mechanical stress, Marcus said, examining the prosthetics joint assembly. The original lubricant is synthesized from Xerathi biochemistry, Vela explained. It responds to my body temperature and adjusts viscosity accordingly. Marcus whistled. That's sophisticated. I can't replicate that exactly, but I might be able to create something similar. Give me a few hours. He disappeared into the station's small chemistry lab and returned with several vials of different colored fluids. Together with Jake, they tested each one, measuring friction coefficients and temperature responses. The final formula used a base of synthetic oil mixed with responsive polymers that Marcus had adapted from medical gel. It wasn't as elegant as the Xerathi original, but it worked. As the pieces came together, Vela began to see the pattern. Each human component was simpler than its Xerathi equivalent, but they worked together in ways that created unexpected strengths. The power system was less efficient but more durable. The neural interface was slower but more stable. The joint lubricant was less responsive but could be manufactured anywhere. Jake worked late into the third night, his daughter asleep in the corner chair. Vela stayed with him, handing him tools when asked, holding components in her multiple arms while he made connections. "Why do you do this?" Vela asked during a quiet moment. "You could have simply told me it was impossible. Why invest so much effort for a stranger?" Jake paused, a soldering iron in his hand. "Because you needed help, and I had the skills to try. That's reason enough, isn't it? On my world, such charity is rare between strangers." "This isn't charity," Jake said. "This is what communities do. We help each other. Besides, Emma believes I can fix anything. Can't let her down." He smiled at his sleeping daughter, and Vela saw the deep love there. "You are a good father," Vela said. "I try," Jake replied quietly. Then he shook off the melancholy and returned to work. "Now, let's get this calibrated. Tomorrow we test it." Vela felt something unfamiliar in her thorax. It took her a moment to identify it. Hope. The morning of the fourth day arrived with nervous anticipation. Vela entered the workshop to find Jake already there, the modified prosthetic laid out on a clean cloth. It looked different now. The sleek xerothigh curves remained, but human components were visible in the joints and power housing. It was a hybrid creation, neither fully alien nor fully human. Emma bounced excitedly beside her father. "Today's the day. Are you ready?" Vela wasn't sure she was ready, but she had come this far. "Yes. Let us begin." Jake had set up a testing area in the corner of the workshop, with handrails and cushioned mats in case something went wrong. He helped Vela into a chair and carefully attached the prosthetic to her lower leg socket. The connection process itself was familiar. The prosthetic clicked into place with a satisfying sound. But then came the neural interfacing, and Vela felt her breath catch. The sensation was wrong. With her original prosthetic, the connection had been seamless. Her thoughts flowed directly into the limb as if it were part of her body. This felt different. There was a delay, a slight disconnect between intention and response. "It feels strange," Vela said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. "That's normal," Jake assured her. "Your brain needs time to adapt to the new interface. Try standing." Vela gripped the handrails and pulled herself up. The prosthetic supported her weight, which was encouraging. But when she tried to take a step, her leg jerked awkwardly. She nearly fell, catching herself on the rail. "The response is too sensitive," she said. Jake consulted his diagnostic pad. "I see it. The neural mesh is overcorrecting. Let me adjust the gain." He made changes to the control software, and Vela tried again. This time the leg barely moved at all. "Too much," Vela said. They spent the next 2 hours making tiny adjustments. Jake would modify a parameter, Vela would test it, and they would evaluate the results together. Gradually, the prosthetic began to respond more naturally. Linda stopped by during her lunch break to help refine the neural processing algorithms. Marcus brought a new batch of lubricant that he thought might reduce the friction in the knee joint. Even the station's medical officer, a human named Dr. Helen Price, came by to observe and offer suggestions. Vela found herself surrounded by humans who genuinely wanted to help her succeed. It was overwhelming and touching in equal measure. By mid-afternoon, she could walk the length of the workshop without holding the rails. The movement wasn't perfect. She could feel the slight delay in response, the different weight distribution, the unfamiliar feedback from the sensors. But she was walking. "How does it feel?" Jake asked. Vela took several more steps, concentrating on the sensations. "Different. Not bad, just different. The balance is slightly off." "That's the heavier power cell," Jake said. "We can add a counterweight to your upper thigh attachment to compensate." "No," Vela said slowly. "I think I can adjust to it. My brain is already starting to compensate." Over the next few hours, something remarkable happened. The prosthetic that had felt so foreign began to feel more natural. Vela's neural pathways adapted to the new interface patterns. Her sense of balance shifted to accommodate the different weight. Her muscles learned the slight delay in response time. By evening, she was walking with increasing confidence. Jake had her try stairs, uneven surfaces, and quick direction changes. The prosthetic handled everything. "Try running," Emma suggested. Vela hesitated. She had not run since her accident. Even with her original prosthetic, running had felt unsafe, the quantum joints sometimes locking unexpectedly under high stress. "Just a few steps," Jake encouraged. "The joints are rated for it." Vela took a breath and jogged across the workshop. The prosthetic responded smoothly, the human-made joints flexing reliably under the impact. She ran faster, testing the limits, and the leg kept up. When she stopped, she was breathing hard, but there was a smile on her mandibles. "It works," she said, wonder in her voice. "It actually works." Emma cheered, and Jake grinned with relief. But as the initial excitement faded, Vela felt something else stirring inside her. She sat down on the workshop bench, her forearms trembling slightly. "Vela," Jake asked, concerned, "are you all right? Is the prosthetic hurting you?" "No," Vela said. "The prosthetic is fine. Better than fine." "Then what's wrong?" Vela was silent for a long moment, struggling with emotions she had kept buried for months. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "On my world, losing a limb is considered a great shame. We are supposed to be perfect, complete. When I had my accident, I became lesser in the eyes of my people. The prosthetic was supposed to hide my incompleteness, to let me pretend I was still whole." Emma walked over and looked up at her with those earnest human eyes. "But you are whole. You're still you, right?" The simple observation hit Vela like a physical blow. The child was right. The accident had taken her leg, but it had not taken her mind, her skills, her identity. She was still Vela. The prosthetic did not make her less, it made her adapted. "I have spent so much time mourning what I lost," Vela said softly. "I never considered that I might gain something instead." "What have you gained?" Jake asked gently. Vela looked at the modified prosthetic, with its blend of alien precision and human durability. She thought about the community of humans who had rallied to help her. She considered how the challenges had forced her to adapt, to grow stronger. "Perspective," she said finally. "And new friends." Emma hugged her lower arm, and Vela carefully wrapped her upper arms around the child in return. Jake cleared his throat, looking suspiciously emotional. "Well, we should still monitor the prosthetic for the next few days. Make sure everything stays calibrated. You're welcome to come by any time if something feels off." "I will," Vela promised. "And Jake, thank you. Not just for fixing the prosthetic, but for showing me a different way to think about it." "Just doing what humans do best," Jake said with a smile. "Making things work." As Vela walked back to her quarters that night, moving smoothly on her hybrid prosthetic, she felt lighter than she had in months. The leg worked better than her original had. The human modifications made it more reliable, easier to maintain, and adaptable to different conditions. But more than that, she felt different inside. The shame she had carried for so long was fading, replaced by a quiet pride. She had faced a problem and solved it with help from others. She had adapted and grown stronger. That night, for the first time since her accident, Vela slept peacefully. News traveled fast on New Terra Station. Within a week, every permanent resident and most of the temporary visitors had heard about the Zirathai woman walking around on a prosthetic leg repaired by a human engineer. The story grew with each telling, acquiring details both true and embellished. Jake noticed the attention when the first non-human visitor appeared at his workshop door. The being was a Krell, a species with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbows. He clutched a damaged data storage device in his primary manipulator. "I heard you fix things that cannot be fixed," the Krell said, his voice like wind chimes. "My data core contains research from 20 years. The encryption module has failed. My people say the data is lost." Jake examined the device, already mentally cataloging which human components might interface with Krell technology. "I can take a look. No promises, but I'll do my best." The Krell left the device and departed. Before Jake could begin examining it, 2 more aliens arrived. A Vornath with a malfunctioning environmental suit. A silicate whose communication implant had degraded. Each had been told their problems were unsolvable without expensive replacements or long waits for specialized parts. Emma, who had taken to spending every afternoon in the workshop after school, looked at her father with wide eyes. "Dad, you're getting famous." Jake laughed, but there was a hint of worry in his expression. Famous might be overstating it. But yeah, seems like word got out. Vela visited the workshop daily during that first week, both to monitor her prosthetic and to watch Jake work. She found herself fascinated by his approach to each new problem. He treated every challenge the same way, with careful analysis followed by creative problem-solving. The Krell data core proved particularly challenging. The encryption module used quantum states that would collapse if disturbed. Jake spent 3 days researching Krell cryptography before he found a workaround. Instead of trying to repair the damaged module, he built a bypass that could read the encrypted data and re-encrypt it with a new, human-designed module. When the Krell returned to collect his restored data, he brought payment in the form of rare crystalline compounds used in advanced manufacturing. Jake tried to refuse, but the Krell insisted. "You have given me back 2 decades of work," the Krell said. "This is inadequate compensation, but it is what I can offer." More clients came. Jake found himself working late into the nights, with Emma doing homework in the corner and Vela often helping with tasks that required extra hands. The 3 of them fell into an easy rhythm, an unlikely family united by broken things and the determination to fix them. One evening, about 3 weeks after Vela's prosthetic repair, she made an announcement. "I have decided not to return to my homeworld," Vela said. "I will stay here, on New Terra Station." Jake looked up from the Vornith suit he was repairing. "That's a big decision. What changed your mind?" "Everything," Vela said simply. "On my world, I was defined by what I had lost. Here, I am defined by what I can do. I have been communicating with station administration. They need engineers, and I have skills that could be useful." "That's wonderful!" Emma exclaimed. "You're staying." Vela's mandibles formed what Jake had learned to recognize as a smile. "Yes. And I have a proposal for you, Jake. What if we worked together? Your human engineering combined with my Zirathai technical knowledge could be very effective." Jake considered this. His workshop was getting overwhelmed with requests. Having a partner, especially one with Vela's expertise, would help tremendously. But more than that, he had come to value her friendship. "I think that's a great idea," Jake said. "Welcome aboard, partner." They shook hands, and then Vela insisted on the proper Zirathai greeting as well, which involved crossing 2 of her 4 arms with both of Jake's in a complex pattern. Emma giggled at their awkward attempts to get it right. The workshop expanded over the following months. Jake and Vela submitted a proposal to station administration for a formal repair and engineering service that specialized in cross-species technology integration. The administrator, a practical woman named Governor Patricia Lane, approved it immediately. "We need more of this kind of cooperation," she said during their meeting. "The galaxy is full of different technologies that don't talk to each other. If you two can bridge those gaps, you'll be providing a valuable service." Word of their workshop spread beyond New Terra Station. Ship captains began adding the station to their routes specifically to have repairs done. Engineers from other facilities contacted them asking for consultation on difficult problems. The Galactic Council even sent an observer to document their techniques. The observer was a Nexian, a species known for bureaucratic precision. He spent 2 weeks watching Jake and Vela work, taking meticulous notes. When he filed his report, it created ripples throughout the Council. The report noted that human engineering philosophy, when combined with other species' technical knowledge, produced solutions that were often superior to single-species approaches. It recommended establishing similar collaborative workshops on other frontier stations. Not everyone was pleased with this assessment. Some species, particularly those who prided themselves on technological superiority, dismissed human methods as crude workarounds. But others recognized the value of adaptability and began experimenting with similar approaches. Emma watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. She had known from the start that her dad could fix Vela's leg. But she had not anticipated how that one act would grow into something so much larger. One afternoon, about 6 months after Vela's arrival, Emma sat in her usual corner of the workshop doing homework. The space had been expanded and now included separate work areas for different types of projects. Vela had her own section where she worked on Zirathai-specific repairs, while Jake handled more general engineering tasks. A new client entered, a species Emma had never seen before. The being had multiple eye stalks and a body that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. "I need help," the being said in translated Galactic Common. "My species' medical implant has failed. I was told you might be able to repair it, even though it uses biotechnology foreign to this sector." Jake and Vela exchanged glances, then both smiled. "Let's take a look," Jake said. Emma watched them begin their diagnostic process, asking questions and examining the implant with their different tools and perspectives. She thought about how much had changed in 6 months. Her father had a partner and friend. Vela had found a new home and purpose. The workshop had become a hub of cross-species cooperation. And it had all started because a little girl believed her dad could fix a broken leg. Another being arrived at the door, this one clutching a damaged navigation computer. Then another with a malfunctioning translator. The workshop filled with the sounds of different languages, the smell of various lubricants and solvents, and the energy of problems being solved. Emma returned to her homework, but she was smiling. She had learned something important from watching her father and Vela work. It was not about whether something could be fixed exactly as it was before. It was about whether it could be made to work again, maybe even work better, by combining different ideas and approaches. As the evening wore on and the workshop buzzed with activity, Emma pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and started writing. Her teacher had assigned an essay about what she wanted to be when she grew up. She started writing about engineering, about fixing things, about bringing different people together to solve problems. About her dad and Vela and the workshop that had become a second home. At the top of the page, she wrote her title in careful letters, "Why I Want to Be an Engineer Like My Dad." Outside the workshop, New Terra Station continued its eternal rotation. Ships arrived and departed. Beings from dozens of worlds conducted their business. And in one corner of the maintenance bay, a human and a Zerathai worked side by side, proving that the best solutions often came from the most unexpected combinations. The galaxy was a big place, full of complex problems and incompatible technologies. But it was also full of people willing to help each other, willing to try new approaches, willing to believe that maybe, just maybe, they could fix that. All it took was someone willing to say the words and mean them. "My dad can fix that." The end.